everyone. Welcome to Schollylife. Today we're lucky. We've got Paul Torricelli with us, dear friend of mine, somebody who's been with Scholarship for Athletes since the beginning, Hall of Fame college tennis coach from Northwestern. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So I just want to start a little bit on your background. When did you get into college coaching?
I got into college coaching in 1978, actually 1977, excuse me, at Chico State, which was where I went to school and played, and an opportunity to start my career there and succeeded my former coach.
Okay, and you played there, and then how much longer after you played there did you become the coach?
Well, I graduated in 1974 and then came back in 1977. I spent a couple years teaching high school, but my goal was always to be a college coach.
So you were a head coach at what, 25?
26.
Wow. And was that common at that time to be a 26-year-old college head coach, or were you pretty young?
I might have been a little young, I think, a little bit. I would say there's no set age. I think even today you're seeing fairly young guys get head jobs.
How long were you there?
Just 2 years. And then unfortunately the program was cut along with several other sports, kind of the beginning of a lot of cutbacks in the state of California. So that actually was the catalyst for me moving on to the Midwest, which ended up being a very good thing, the opportunity at Northwestern. But I got a taste early on about the realities of men's non-revenue sports and being an endangered species.
What was recruiting like in the beginning days?
I really had to learn about the school and the product that I was selling and the school that I was selling, and it was from the get-go, and this never changed. You didn't have to walk in and convince a family that this was a great degree. Northwestern's an elite school. It's a fabulous degree. So I had a great academic school and product to sell from the get-go. The challenge for me was quality of the tennis program and what we could do and what we wanted to do.
One thing you touched on in 1984, you said I had to learn the school and learn what I was selling. At what point, do you get training? And at any point, did Northwestern ever offer you any training or professional development?
Well, I think it's bits of both. I think at any job you learn on the fly. I mean, we learn through experience, and you use your gut instincts. And it was a lot of go and ask questions. If I didn't know, I'd go and ask a question. There would be periodic, from time to time, training or workshops, and you might pick up some tidbits here or there. But a lot of times you learn from your fellow coaches. Okay. And both within your department and your fellow tennis coaches, you trade ideas. You pick up things by osmosis. I think good coaches are great listeners. They pay attention, and they hear something from another coach. Boom, they check it out. They ask, they check it out, they do a little homework on their own, they adapt it. And I think that's part of good, being a professional in any endeavor, is you pick up things as you go along. I'm sure you would agree that you go to workshops, you pick up a little bit here or there. Quite often you go to a workshop and you feel like you know more than the person presenting it. And tennis has its own niche. You're selling a slightly different sport, and a lot of times the things that you're going to learn in training and manuals and in publications and in workshops doesn't necessarily transfer straight in for you.
Okay. Now let's go back to just recruiting, kind of the end of your career in the 2000s. You've got Facebook coming on, and email and Twitter and all these things, and people recruiting from all over the world, and young coaches getting in. And I know a lot of young coaches are doing in-home visits, across the pond and all over the world, and recruiting's really picked up. What were your thoughts kind of towards the end about kind of what you would like to see from kids and what you would have liked to see from parents, and kind of how you went about your business recruiting?
Well, I think the biggest single thing is them doing their homework and being informed and asking important questions about what the experience was going to be like. In other words, you can find out about the tennis, the quality of tennis, and you can find out about the academics, but more the nuts and bolts daily stuff about what their experience is going to be like, who they're going to be playing for, and were they going to be taken care of as people. I really wanted families to pay attention to that, and I really prided myself on this. Our guys had a good experience, good relationship with me and the other coaches, and really were happy they went there. In addition to the fact that it was an exceptional degree, and I was very proud of that, and that was what I was trying to get across to families, and that really never changed throughout recruiting. Okay. But as time went on, with more and more good coaches and programs, the intensity and the competitiveness of recruiting, I kind of likened it to college basketball. It really got dog eat dog.
And do you feel like kids were prepared on their unofficial and official visits to ask you appropriate questions, ask the guys in the team appropriate questions?
Generally speaking, no. I think a lot of them really came in just kind of waiting to see, kind of going on their gut.
Talk about being prepared for the visit. One thing that I talk a lot about is that, it's not just before the visit or during the visit, it's after the visit. Do you remember, was there a certain percentage, high or low, percent of kids that followed up with a thank you email or a thank you note and thanked the guys in the team and continued to build that relationship, or was that not very common?
I think that was, again, the minority. But I think it's really hard to find kids who are really, really prepared before and after the visit.
Do you remember any kids that, really on their visits stood out because they did ask questions, they did write a proper thank you note, the guys in the team did like them? Would someone like that become much higher on your wish list?
Yeah, it really, I'd like to think that you going in as a coach, you had somebody pretty well pegged and evaluated in terms of the off the court sort of thing. But a lot of times the visit just confirmed that.
What kind of role should the parents be playing? What did you like to have, with the kids you were recruiting? How did you like the parents to behave during the recruiting process?
Well, I think appropriately. When I say appropriately, an appropriate amount of involvement. In other words, some interest, some questions, some give and take. However, you didn't want them to be the focal point. You didn't want to feel like they were driving the process, that their interest was higher than the kids. You're recruiting the kid, not the parent.
And was that a big red flag for you if the parents were asking all the questions, doing all the emails, being the ones that were always proactive, and you never felt like you got to build a relationship with the kid?
Yes, that is definitely the case.
Any last words of advice for kids out there? We've got a lot of student athletes watching this about just simple advice that you would give them as a college coach as to how they should handle themselves and what they should do during the recruiting process to help them find the right school.
Well, the general comment I have is that, as you mentioned at the beginning, when I started with Scholarship for Athletes in 2007, it began a whole new education on recruiting for me. I've learned so much about the recruiting process since I got out of coaching, and I'm convinced more than ever that recruits and their families need help. I found that they're just as uninformed right now as they were in 2007 and before. I don't find that people are getting proper information. I don't think they're getting proper help. I'm being asked questions that I'm really surprised that people don't know about. There's as much information or lack of information or lack of education right now with recruits and their families than there's ever been. And I do put a lot of the reason for that, I don't want to say blame, on the families. They're going to the wrong people. They're not really doing research. And, it's really critical to get help.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate your time, Paul. Wraps it up for us today. For the people out there, if you guys have any questions for myself or for Paul, you can find us on Facebook or Twitter. And, it was great. We'll do it again soon.
All right.
And good luck to your Niners this weekend.
Yep. Always use some luck. Thanks.